Greetings, beloveds. This is Amy Karen Johnson, the Earth Channel, here with you today to talk about the energy of this week, but also to make an announcement that today, this evening, as I am publishing this video, my new website will be live. Yay! Finally! I haven't wanted to say anything sooner because I've had, some hurdles here and there. If any one of you have ever designed your own website, you know what I'm talking about. But in my previous videos, and this will be one of the series that I have been working on still, I'm not going to focus too much on the new website. I do have a video welcoming you to it and announcing it separate from this that was published just about 45 minutes before this video is going live. But this week we will have, if we are looking at all of the centers, all 9 centers in human design, we will have all the centers defined if we're looking at both the unconscious and conscious definitions. However, I haven't spoken too much about the difference there. And while I have been focusing on human design, when you look at other types of astrology like Vedic astrology or even potentially Western astrology, maybe using the sidereal zodiac as I do, then the human design chart for the conscious only gates and positions is what you would be looking at, with the exception of the earth, the position of the earth. And in human design, we don't really look at the ascendant necessarily, although that is sort of what the unconscious gates are more about. However, this week, when you're looking at both the conscious and the unconscious, there is one channel defined by both the conscious and the unconscious earth positions, and that is the 3254. And I have specifically chosen to make this series about human design, but I am still into Vedic astrology and learning more about that as we go, which is, partly because I am such a student in Vedic astrology, that's partly why I have chosen to focus this series on human design more. However, I have chosen specifically for this date of announcing and opening my new website, I have chosen the position of the moon as well as the ascendant, and done some other types of readings for this particular timing. The moon is in the nakshatra of Pushya, which is supposed to be very good for starting new ventures like this. And the ascendant is in the Purva Ashada and quickly changes to the Uttara Ashada nakshatras. And those all felt very fitting for starting a new website as the website that I want to start. It's very fitting for that. And I won't get into too much detail there. Maybe after I finish this series, I will do more of a series on the nakshatras or Vedic astrology in general. I know at least one of my listeners and subscribers is into Vedic astrology, so I thought I would mention that. But getting back to the channel defined by the conscious and unconscious earth, the 3254, actually before we get to that, I do want to mention that I'm going to share with you also the conscious only chart for today, this timing, which has no centers defined. And so a person born at this time, or an entity born at this time, would perhaps at first at least consciously only be what is known in human design as a reflector type. And I think that there are many lessons that are appropriate for reflectors, at least in human design, are also appropriate for all of us, especially any of us who have open centers, which will be white in your chart. And if you don't have your chart already, I do want to quickly mention that you can go pause and run your chart now, or the charts of anyone else in your life that you might want to look at humandesignamerica.com/chart. There are lots of other chart creators that you can use as well, but that's the one I usually recommend. I like their free sample charts, and I have no affiliation with them, at least not yet. But when we are looking at reflectors, whether conscious, maybe unconscious as well, but for example, the energy starting today, if we're looking at the conscious reflector energy of today, reflectors are supposed to, according to some of human design philosophy, look at the transitions of the moon, which are particularly appropriate as I am speaking about the position of the moon for opening my new website. For example, there are 27 nakshatras. They're known as the lunar mansions, and just represent about 13 degrees or 13 degrees 20 seconds within each of the 12 signs. The other chart I always share with you is also showing the 12 signs as being in the sidereal positions, not the tropical, although the hexagrams, this is where I differ from other people, are in the original tropical positions because they align the 8 gates of what they call G center, the diamond in the middle of the chart. Also, I call it the heart because it has to do with love. Those 8 gates, when at those tropical positions, align with the different pagan holidays, you can call it. They align with the solstices and the equinoxes. And I think that that's meant to be, so I leave them there. So that's how my interpretations differ a little bit from other people speaking about human design that you might see. And so anytime you have a single gate within a channel, it can be defined with red or black or some combination of both of those. If it's only black, then that means it's conscious. And so if it's all the way defined, it will define the center at either end of that channel. But if you're a reflector, or at least your conscious design is a reflector, all of the centers will be white, not colored in any way. And so by looking at the energy of the moon as it transits throughout these different gates, it sort of helps you understand yourself better, how you are affected by all those energies, and then sort of by default or by contrast, seeing more what your particular energy is like without, or, as a constant with all those transits happening. And so your different centers may be defined for a longer period of time by different planets that stay there for longer periods. It could be a really long time if we're talking about Pluto, for example, or even, right now Jupiter is stationing retrograde in gate 55, like I mentioned last week, looking at that channel. So it could be defined for a longer period of time when a planet is staying the same relative to our position here on Earth. And so watching those different moon transits in particular gives you a very quick, easy way to see the effects of the definition of those different gates throughout the month, basically. So when we look at the 3254, that channel, like I said, is defined by the unconscious and conscious Earth positions for today's chart, which I'm sharing with you. And it has to do with, I see it as sustainability. My natal moon is in the 32nd gate. I do not have the 54th gate defined in my natal chart. And so it not only represents a gate that would connect that channel for me, but it's also another bridging gate, as the 55th is that I spoke about last week. It bridges two definitions together. So if you're not sure what definitions are, go back and look at last week's video. But the 54th gate in particular speaks to kundalini, especially being in the root center. The root is that bottom center. And in the chart where it is defined, it's colored in brown. So that kundalini energy, I particularly, personally, I should say, think of all the gates within the root center as having a certain kind of kundalini energy potential there, awakening possible when it's defined or when a planet is transiting any of those gates. With the earth in particular, that gives it even more of a grounding energy. And then when we feel and open up to the energy of Mother Earth, Gaia, really being there and lending her energy, that's a prime time for a kundalini awakening of some kind. And I've said before that a kundalini awakening is often just the beginning of a person's path. There are all kinds of things to be learned once we are more aware and conscious of what is going on in the etheric around us every day, and not just the physical. And then with the unconscious earth being in the splenic center, I'm coming to think it's maybe a little bit more representative of the liver, but human design associates it with the spleen. In the chart where this whole channel is defined, it is colored in brown. And if you are familiar with the Gene Keys work that talks about each of these gates, the shadow, the gift, and the Siddhi expressions, the highest expression, it talks a little bit about preservation, and I can't remember what else specifically right now. I know that the I Ching specifically talks about preservation, this 32nd hexagram, which is associated with this 32nd gate. So it talks about decay as well, but in the with respect to showing what decays and what doesn't. In the physical realm, eventually everything decays. And only by really paying attention to and observing the decay that happens in the physical realm will we be able to more easily see that which is eternal, which is actually only in the etheric, only our luminous eternal beings within. Or you could even sometimes look at it as we are a spiritual being having a physical experience, and that this physical body that we currently not only inhabit, but that we are around. Our true beings are actually bigger or smaller. I mean, space does interesting things when we're speaking about the etheric and our light bodies. We can be seen as being within these physical bodies, and we can also be seen as being around these physical bodies. So I just wanted to give you those two possible ways of looking at this. Our higher selves certainly are bigger than our physical beings, and even bigger than that are our over souls. And so this 32nd gate speaks to identifying that which is sustainable, that which enriches our lives and all life on earth and elsewhere. I've spoken in previous videos about diversity and the different levels of diversity. I named 4 of them. I'll quickly mention them here again in case you haven't seen that video. We have the microscopic level of diversity where we need a certain diversity in our guts. For example, our physical digestive area, organs. We need an amount of diversity there in order to be healthy, in order to digest well. And there's even an intelligence that lives there and is enhanced by a diversity of probiotics, you can call it, the microbiome that lives within our bodies, actually everywhere, not just our guts, but that is where it is most easy to observe the effects of that diversity or lack of diversity. The second level is, I believe it's the different beings, the different creatures on Mother Earth here. We are all enriched when we embrace the diversity of the different animals and insects and plants on Mother Earth. And she helps provide that diversity if we can only allow those natural processes to thrive in all those different ways that they can. The next level is diversity of humans and our different races. Also our different cultures and ethnicities. We are all benefited by the diversity that is meant to be here on Earth, and we are one of the most diverse planets around. And that has challenges that has come with it. It can be difficult when we are coming from a place within our own culture or ethnicity that we are very familiar with and that we love so much, and it contrasts with another ethnicity or culture and the way that they like to do things. And yet, there are many gifts to be had when we open up to at least acknowledging those differences and perhaps adopting some of those different things. We can be enriched by that. And we can certainly be enriched by allowing them to exist, allowing them to flourish. And then finally, I believe the fourth level of diversity, if I remember correctly, is the diversity of our universe, of our beautiful galaxy and universe. We have many different beings that have helped to seed our human population on Earth. And that's partly where we got our diversity, because so many different beings were involved in that. And once we have really embraced the diversity on Earth here, we will be able to more readily, more easily, and more peacefully be able to receive the gifts of technology, philosophy, all kinds of different gifts from our friends throughout the galaxy and throughout the universe who come here to visit us. And I have also mentioned before that those are within not only different star systems and planets, but also different dimensions. So those higher dimensions in particular have so much to share with us, and yet they recognize the value of the work that we are doing here on these more physical planes, because when we resolve those conflicts that can sometimes occur due to contrasts in, our differences, then we actually expand this feeling and acknowledgement and acceptance of even a greater concept of universal love. And I've spoken about this before. It's difficult to put into words sometimes because it goes beyond words. And so all my words can do really is to try to point to that. But you will have to go within and find that truth for yourself. And with the unconscious earth being in gate 32, that can help you if you tune into your unconscious, that which is beyond words within yourself. That's in many ways what any unconscious gate within your chart or anyone else's chart is about. It's about that physical part of ourselves that was formed before we even knew how to talk within the womb. And so that's why that gate, in this chart that I've shared with you, is red as opposed to black. Just to clarify, I don't think I mentioned that particular detail. So let's tune into Gaia here, as I always do, and I invite you to do so with me. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. So Gaia would like to invite you to do a brief grounding meditation with us. It's been a few videos since we really did this fully. Imagine yourself as a tree, and imagine the sun coming down through the crown of your leaves or the crown of your head, pouring down into your third eye, your throat, moving down through your trunk, your heart, solar plexus, sacral, and root, down through your feet, and imagine down through your roots into Mother Earth. And then feel all of that energy coming back up through your roots from Mother Earth, Gaia, who has everything you could wish for. Feel that nourishing energy coming up through your trunk, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and out into your crown of leaves. Allowing that energy just to circulate with your breath and all around you, creating your own world. Amy has had a lot of spiders coming into her life recently as she creates her website. No accident that websites have the word web in them. They are, in a way, a whole world or reality in and of themselves. And they are sometimes created and then let go, only for another one to be created. As far as webs and spiders go, maybe not quite as much with websites, but new things can be created on websites all the time. And so the idea here is to allow that energy to flow and to nourish your world. And to not allow that energy to remain stagnant or get stuck. The wonderful emotions of the moon as it goes throughout the different signs and gates. When we just allow ourselves to observe those emotions, shows us that all emotions are our friends. They all have a wonderful message for us, perhaps a lesson. And when we allow them to circulate and move on, that's when we can truly see the gift. We don't have to hold on to any one of them. We can just allow them to flow And that wonderful circulation that happens with such speed with the moon, those cycles reveal to us, maybe particularly in gate 32, but always with all gates, allow us to see the core of love that remains always and that can run as a common thread throughout all gates. There is a kind of love that can be found in all of them, and that love helps us to reach those higher expressions. And the idea and concept of kundalini as well, with the 54th gate, but again with all gates, shows us the value of awakening that kundalini energy in our root centers and then allowing it to rise up and circulate throughout all of our centers, all of our chakras, all of our gates as well. Letting it clear and cleanse as needed. And then once that is done, whether that's for the moment or for a longer period of time, allowing it to move on. Move on up, move on down, back up again. Embracing the diversity that circulation represents. And just notice, maybe you have a particular favorite place where you like it when the moon is there, or when another planet is there, perhaps. And by just noticing and appreciating that particular position, gate, sign, whatever it might be, and allowing your gratitude to flow, your love to flow relative to that particular place, the more you can expand that love throughout your being, even though you're focusing on that particular place, it allows all of the other gates and signs and positions to expand into more of a place of love as well. So always come back to loving yourself. Come back to your favorites, even while acknowledging the beauty and wonder and gifts that are provided by all of the different diverse expressions that are out there in other people, other beings, other creatures, all the different expressions from Mother Earth and beyond. Deep breath, let it go. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste, beloveds. Thank you for watching, subscribing, liking, sharing, and clicking the bell button to be notified when the new weekly message comes out.